Hi, welcome to In Dialogue, our LCM in Dialogue series. We are happy to be here again. This time we're going to talk about screen time. And again, we have Dr. Davie Miron-Murphy joining us. Before I introduce Dr. Murphy to you for the second and third time that she's been here for our In Dialogue series, I'd like to introduce you to our In Dialogue director, Holly Dalforez. Holly is going to be monitoring Zoom, so if you have any questions, she'll go ahead and answer them. So last time she was just a voice in the background, so we wanted to make sure you saw Holly and just introduce her to everyone. So welcome. Thank you, Holly. Okay, so Dr. Davie Miron-Murphy is a licensed psychologist and associate professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Tulane University. She's been invited, she's a friend of the museum now, to speak on several very important topics. As this In Dialogue series progresses, we've asked you all what are some topics that you're interested in, and overwhelmingly we heard that screen time, screen time, screen time. We want to know things about screen time. So I sent your questions to Dr. Murphy, and she's going to talk to us today. And I'll be asking some of the questions that you asked and some of the questions that we get here at the museum as well. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being here again.
I'm so happy to be back.
Yes. So first of all, what is screen time? When we're talking about screen time, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so cell phones, iPads, leapfrogs, anything with a screen, even learning devices, and we can't forget TVs. TV is, a lot of times people have their TV on for background noise all the time. That is exposure to screen time. So we're talking about anything with a screen.
Yes. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering today. And if you have a question that's not addressed, this is going to be recorded and put on our website, and you can email sblady@lcm.org. We'll have that information up for you later, and we'll get to these answers to you, because I know we're going to cover a lot, but there's still so many things with screen time that parents really want to know about. Yeah. There are some, despite all of the concerns, there are some benefits to screen time. So what are those?
Yeah, so more and more kids are using screens to learn. So we know, especially during COVID, a lot of people got free Chromebooks. A lot of the kids got free Chromebooks through their schools so they could do remote learning. So that's, they're in front of a screen, so that's considered screen time. So those can be benefits for older kids. Also, some kids really do find social connections online. So they may have more difficulty meeting kids who might be like them at school, or they may be bullied at school, and actually they can find some connections, healthier connections online. So it's really about moderation and the quality of the content that the kids are viewing. And it's about monitoring what kids are watching.
Yeah. So this is the part that's not the benefits of screen time, and our parents are very concerned. So tell us, what are some of the detriments and what are some downfalls?
Yeah. So we know for kids 2 and under, they really cannot learn from screens. So a while ago, Baby Einstein came out, and everyone was getting those products and hoping that they could just, put it in front of their infant and they would, learn how to play classical music or learn their alphabet. But we know that kids under 2 really don't understand just the 2D image of a screen, so they're much more likely to learn from a person who's sitting with them, interacting with them. So even if their parents sitting there watching them and imitating and doing, there was a study that showed that even when parents are participating in the learning activity with them, if they're watching it on a screen, they're not going to learn it as well as a person teaching them directly through interaction. And then for older kids especially, they're more at risk for cyberbullying. So finding connections online with people that are not nice to them, or they don't know, who are maybe saying mean things to them online. So they may be more at risk for that. They may be more at risk for exposure to pornographic material. Yeah. So we really want to monitor what the kids are doing, as I mentioned. And then health effects. So kids can be at risk for obesity because they're not moving as much. And they're just not interacting socially with people, which really is a very important part of development. So we want our kids, interacting and moving and doing all the things that they need to do. We also see that some kids sacrifice eating, they sacrifice sleeping or bathing because they're
Wow.
so consumed with video games. So we want to really watch that.
So in that, I thought a lot about what you just said about the permissions. And so at what age do you think it's appropriate to have the conversation about these are some things that could happen online, and
Yeah.
bullying, strangers, like when do
Yeah.
you start that conversation?
I think as early as possible if they're online, unsupervised. So that could be at school. So as much as schools try to control the laptop content, the kids still get access to websites that are not designed for them, not intended for them. They're for adults. So I would say, probably around age 6 or so, at school age, go ahead and start having that conversation about what the internet is and how whatever you put on the internet stays there forever. It doesn't get deleted. If you send personal details about yourself, like where you live, your address, where you go to school, people who may have malintent can access that information to even if they're just developing a relationship with them. We don't know what could come of that. So we want to teach kids early on that if they are talking to someone online they don't know, then really they need to just ignore that person. And so I don't think it's too early. I think kids, younger kids have a hard time really comprehending that and understanding. But again, that supervision piece is so important to make sure that you and parents know what their kids are doing online.
Yeah, that's so scary. But you also made me think of this other thing, and we won't go down this rabbit hole, but there are a lot of parents who are they're putting a lot of their child's information online or pictures of their child. And we're telling children this stays with you for the rest of your lives. And so really at some point, it's a conversation with your child about what they want to have on here.
That's a good point.
We were just thinking about that, because I have a young child in my family, and it's just like she's very protective about what we put online. And I was like, you should be. Like, you should make sure that we're not overexposing her through Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
So when it comes to screen time, how much time what's the magic number?
Yeah, I wish I had that for you. The American Academy of Pediatrics did put out some hour recommendations several years ago. So they were up to age 2, really no screen time, 0 screen time, unless they were using it for video chatting, like FaceTiming with grandparents and kind of developing those relationships. Other than that, there's a recommendation against all screen time. 2 to 5, they recommended 1 hour per day. But in 2016, they realized that really we need to look at the quality and not just the quantity. Again, because some kids are learning online as they get older. But I would say those recommendations I still think are useful if you're thinking about kind of like junk screen time, like just TV that's really not benefiting them in any way, or video games that are just for fun and really not teaching anything. I would kind of use those same kind of hour recommendations of really for under 2, no screen time at all. Even playing with your phone is screen time, and so kids get confused by that. They can also have cognitive. I didn't mention this, but they can have cognitive effects from too much screen time. So they can have problems with attention and concentration if they're just always looking at a screen and not kind of looking up and looking around them and interacting with their world. So we can see kind of hyperactivity and trouble with attention, trouble with falling asleep. So really for the young kids and infants, we don't want to have a lot of screen time. Up to age 5, I think, again, an hour a day is about right for them for that kind of just fun screen time.
So what about the pressures of all my friends are on, at certain age where they're dealing with the peer pressure of the Roblox and the games that they're playing? Like, what advice do you have for parents to deal with, but it's not fair, and being strong in that argument?
Yeah. It's really hard. As kids get older, they're more influenced by peers. So when they're younger, up to age about 6 or so, their parents are the main influencers in their lives. As they're going to school and spending more time with their peers at school, then their friends become more influential. So that peer pressure is real. And I think that we want to ask our kids, what do they want a cell phone for? Is it because they want to play video games? There are other video game devices. There's Nintendo. There are other kinds of devices they can get just for games. But if it's to connect with a friend, is there a way to have more play dates and socialize in person? If it's for safety, that's another conversation. If they're on their own, if they're walking home from school on their own, they may need a cell phone. And then you can get one that doesn't have, has the ability to call and text and not necessarily go online.
And I know you mentioned the time issue. Can children get addicted to screen time and the use of video games?
Yeah, I think that when kids are using screens so much that it's interfering with their daily routine, their activities that they used to enjoy, with their mood. So one sign that I watch for is, how do kids respond when you turn it off? A lot of kids have big meltdowns, tantrums, really get upset. If that starts to happen and that's interfering with their mood or with their relationship with their parents or siblings, that is maybe an indicator that they're on their screens a little too much. And so I don't know if we want to use the word addicted, but if they're really, really preoccupied with it and it's getting in the way of their functioning, then it might be time to cut back. So you can ask your pediatrician for a behavioral plan to kind of reduce the amount of screen time. But if it really continues to persist and you're seeing a lot of depression and anxiety, which we do see with kids who have unlimited access to video games, for example, I have a lot of kids that have come to me in my practice whose parents complain that they're in their room all day playing video games. They won't come out for dinner, or they do quickly eat and go back to video games, and have a really hard time turning it off. So that's when, it's a bi-directional thing. We don't know if that kid is already depressed and sort of more at risk for just kind of being drawn to screen time to avoid interactions or avoid being with other people, or if that's causing the depression, and it's probably a little bit of both.
Oh, wow. So at what point do we start to find some other alternatives? If we're realizing that this is a problem, what are some alternatives that will work with kiddos?
I think that parent modeling is huge. I think that's number one. If we are on our screens all the time, we're sending the message that that's how we function in the world, that and a lot of things do happen on screens, right? We use our phones for everything. So we want to teach our kids, what we're doing. Even for little kids, we want to talk through, okay, I'm just sending so-and-so's mom a message about meeting up later at the park, for example. So we want to work on our own modeling. And by that, I mean just setting a good example for that. There are family media plans that you can find online through, I believe it's American Academy of Pediatrics again. And you can set up a whole plan for your whole family. Parents, kids, young kids, to determine what type of media is okay and what type is not, and what are your goals and values as a family. So if one of the values, for example, is be kind to each other, we want to focus on the media that is about pro-social skills, interacting well, and making sure we're not accessing any kind of bullying, being exposed to any kind of bullying online. But I think that the number one recommendation that pediatricians give is for parents to interact with their children. It's very simple, and it's not always easy, but it is just good parenting, and it really helps development far more than a screen does. So we want to try to just reduce the screen time and increase the time that we're interacting. Kind of a middle ground might be to interact with your child while they're on their screen. So for example, if they're watching cartoons, sit with them, watch for a little while, talk about what's happening, and then go off and make dinner. Kind of check in with your child while they're on their screens.
Does it help? My teacher instincts are kicking in to say, here's a timer, or you have 3 minutes left, start to wrap it up. Are those kind of some mediating factors that help?
Yeah, okay. It certainly helps to to let kids know. Now you have to make sure they're paying attention.
Right.
Because
you get into a game
really
land and you forget everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
So but if you develop a routine of like, I'm going to let you know at 5 minutes, and by, at the end of the time, when the timer goes off, then you have to turn it off. I've said this a few times to my kids. And so when you develop that routine, that can help. But again, for in my household, if it starts to become a problem where we're having, we're slamming doors or we're kind of getting really upset when we have to turn screens off, that's when we take a break, good long break from the screens, because it's clearly interfering with mood.
The moods.
Yeah.
One thing that has helped with my mothering is really saying, I need to know why you're so obsessed with this game. And so really, okay, tell me the obstacles and let me understand it so that we can have, a conversation, and I'm not just, dismissing everything that they're interested in. I don't love them all, but at least I can talk to them a little bit about it, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then you can also understand that frustration a little bit more. Like, I know you're on level 5, but it's time to close it down, and we can do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there are parental controls in some of these games and things too, and parents are asking us, do they help? And what do you know about parental controls, and should they use them?
Yeah, there are a lot of parental controls that you can, that even games might come with. So you can just turn off the chat feature, for example, of some of the video games that are available online, and so that prohibits the child from chatting with anyone, which is good, because even if they think their friend is playing, they may not know if it's really their friend, and so just a no chatting rule would be helpful. So that's one thing, and then there are lots of software you can download on your phone, for example, to have parental controls. And some advice that a parent gave me was start that early. Just set the expectation from the beginning with the first device that the parents are going to have that control over the devices. As they get older, it may not be as appropriate to have so much control for older, teens who need more freedom. But still, it can be helpful just to let your kids know from the beginning that this is something I'm going to be monitoring.
And this is why.
Yeah, for safety. Exactly.
So sometimes, this is from a parent that sent us this question, I need my kids to watch TV or get on their machine so I can take a break, work, get things done around the house. What can I do about that?
Yes.
As a babysitter.
Right. Yes, we use our screens as babysitters sometimes. Yes, and there was a whole study on this during COVID. People had to work. Parents were working at home, their kids were home, they needed them to be on screens just for a couple hours, or so they could get something done around the house, or get some work done, or get some laundry done, cook dinner. It's really hard. So some advice, this clearly, I'm not advocating for just turning off all screens. I think that's not realistic, really. But one idea is for your little kids to help you do whatever you're trying to do. So if you're trying to do laundry, get them involved in that. They can bring the clothes to the washer. They can put them in the washer and the dryer. They can push the buttons. They love pushing the buttons on the machine. They can even help fold. So you may not get those kind of tasks done as quickly as you would on your own, but it's serving a couple purposes. One, they're not on their screens. 2, little kids love to help. They feel really good about themselves when they do, and you can praise them. 3, that's bonding with your child time. That's the time for you all to interact together, and it teaches them responsibility. So that's one idea for just chores. Of course, we need breaks as parents. We need to just shut our eyes for a few minutes, or just maybe we want to get on our own phones and kind of do some social media on our own, and I think that's okay. It's just kind of limiting that is what's important.
We just shared an article between the parent mentors and the early learning director on all about pro tasks and pro chores. And it's amazing the benefits that doing chores with your kids has. The building language, building empathy. Yeah. We were just like, we're going to start giving chores to everyone. Cleanup time.
Right.
And our In Dialogue director has her hand up. So Holly's going to chime in.
So one of the things maybe you can address is the idea that things that come from a screen have a very limited vocabulary, and that it's very much it's a closed-ended learning environment rather than an open-ended, more exploratory kind of thing. And so if you want to maybe address that a little bit about, you were just saying, the vocabulary that's available when you're working with parents.
Yes.
The importance of having open-ended activities for them to do rather than things that are very controlled.
Yeah, we're not anti-closed projects, but there are some projects that children do that they're working on fine motor skills, and so they're trying to glue this item to this item. But we follow the Reggio Emilia approach to childhood education here, so we do like to make sure that we provide a lot of open-ended projects for children, and that means we don't know exactly what they're going to come up with. It's blank canvases, blocks that they can build whatever they want, and it's an opportunity that kind of refreshes us as parents and as teachers, where we're like, that's a really cool idea. We never thought of that before. So we're trained in asking open-ended questions and making that learning and thinking visible. So that's something that we're really proud of here. We do this in all of our galleries. The play facilitators are trained to do that as well. But thank you for saying that, because we really do want to share that with parents. This is how we do it. Sometimes we'll ask questions of the children who are here, and the parents will answer for them real quickly. And we're like, no, we want to hear their thoughts and theories on things. So yeah, open-ended activities, and that's not always easy, but it's sometimes so easy. Just a blank sheet of paper. Here's some blocks. Let's just go for it. But thanks for asking that. I thought you were going to go down the track of deep reading with digital reading versus, that's another topic for another time, because people ask me a lot, what's better? Should my students be reading e-readers or real books? The answer is real books. But we'll talk about it next time. Will my young child be at a disadvantage in school or socially if she's not using technology regularly?
Great question. So young children are not going to learn as well through screens. So even though a lot of parents are getting their kids screens early, the leapfrogs, different things that teach, and then a lot of the tests for schools these days are actually done on screens. So IQ testing now is done on screens. So you may be wondering, so is my child going to know what they're doing when they have to go for the test? Kids pick things up so quickly. So there's really not a risk of them not doing as well academically or even socially if they don't have screens early on, because they can pick it up if that's something that you want them to do and something that they need to do. They can do that later.
Let them do it later.
Yeah.
At what age, you did mention this earlier, is having a cell phone recommended?
Yeah, so again, it depends on what they need it for. It depends on, again, if it's a safety issue where you need to reach your child to be able to pick them up, at their sports practice or something, and they're on their own. Having a cell phone, as early as 10, may be needed. But around 13, kind of teenage years, that's when kids seem to be really ready to have one. It depends on your child. It depends on their maturity level, their social skills, and then again what they need it for.
And what restrictions you want to put on it. So we talked about this one too. Do you want to talk a little bit more about, one of the questions that we had online was just more about the background noise, constantly having a TV or things on in the house, and how that affects toddlers and children?
Yeah. So there have been many studies demonstrating that TV background noise actually decreases the language in the home that's spoken. So when the TV's on, the family's not talking as much. And again, kids learn much more from their live interactions with other people. So we really want to, and you might have some thoughts on this too, but to really support that language-rich environment in the home, we want to turn off the screens, turn off even the radio. Talk radio, music is fine. There are benefits to that, but for TV that's on, for a lot of homes all day, that can affect kids' language development. And attention. Again, they're going to be pulled to that screen, and we're all pulled to that screen. Walk in the room, in a restaurant when there's screens on, and everybody just looking at the screen instead of interacting and enjoying each other's company. At night, this is really a concern. A lot of people do try to fall asleep to their TVs, and they believe that they need their television or the noise to fall asleep. But again, studies have shown that that actually interferes with good sleep quality. So we want to try to teach others sleep hygiene. So going to bed at a set time each night. Actually like turning down the lights, turning off the devices, making sure no screen time an hour before bed. Really, there's a white noise machine that can serve a similar purpose for you. That's not about the up and down kind of noises that TVs can have. A commercial will come on and then it's much louder.
Right.
And so that can startle kids awake again. So that defeats the purpose. Plus, we don't really, if we're not there, we're not really monitoring what's on the TV, and kids are kind of exposed to that. They wake up and there's maybe adult content on TV, and so it really is something I don't recommend for sleep.
Well, you've answered all of these questions. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to talk about?
Just that there are so many resources out there. Again, that family media plan is really neat, and you can kind of tailor size it for your family. It's kind of overwhelming, actually. I'd be surprised if anyone was making full use of it. But you can customize it to your needs. So that's available at American Academy of Pediatrics. There was recently a report from the American Psychological Association on teenage use of social media. That's another topic that just to be thinking about early on, especially getting into middle school, where kids are more exposed to social media and can have some really serious consequences from viewing certain images all the time, and from the social aspect of that, where people just have more guts to say things online that, more than they would say in person.
Right.
So we want to, again, kind of think about that down the road, how we're going to handle that when kids get a little bit older and start to use more social media.
There's some scary things out there, but every time we talk to you, we feel better. So thank you for shedding some light on screen time. People ask us about it all the time. Any resources that Dr. Murphy mentioned will be on the recorded version of this, which will be on our website under caregivers page. Anything coming from Zoom?
Oh, I think we've answered all of the questions.
Great. All right. Well, we will see you next month for In Dialogue series. And thank you for everybody who came on Zoom. And thank you all out there. Have a great day.